Okay, our first speaker today is Jack Brink, and he's going to talk a little bit about writing on stone, which is a phenomenal rock art site in southern Alberta, Canada. Take it away, Jack.
Thank you, Linnea. Let me share my screen here. Greetings, everyone. Nice to be with you today. I'm pleased to be a part of this. It should be, as Linnea said, it's new. It's an experiment, and it should be fun. That's what we're all here for, is to enjoy this. And I'm going to share a little bit of my experience. I just have 10 minutes right now, so that will be this will be quick and dirty. I've decided to use my 10 minutes to say a bit about the formation of and the importance of a management plan at this site of writing on stone in southern Alberta. The management plan is kind of the focus of today's workshop, but it isn't the only thing we'll be talking about. But I'm going to use my first 10 minutes to talk about this, and then in my the breakout session, I'll be talking about some other things that have to do with writing on stone and other sites as well. So for writing on stone, for those of you who haven't been there, it is in extreme southern Alberta, right on the Montana border. The photograph in the lower left is showing you the Milk River in the foreground, Writing on Stone Park in the foreground, and the Sweetgrass Hills of Montana in the distance. So you can see we're literally a couple of kilometers from the US border. It is a stunningly beautiful place. It's one of the, I think, top 10 places in the world, in my view, in terms of just scenic beauty. If you were not interested in rock art at all, and I know that's true of nobody in the audience today, you should go there anyway, because it is just one of the most beautiful and stunning places, with deep canyons and high towering cliffs and beautiful fauna and flora. And it's quite remote, and it's never overwhelmed with people. It is not the Grand Canyon. It is not Mesa Verde. It's 50 kilometers from the nearest small town on a dirty, dusty road. And actually it's paved now all the way. But it's you can be there and be pretty much alone. So I highly recommend it. I think you'll find it's one of the great places you've ever been to. Oh, I should mention it's home to about 150 rock art sites. That's individual sites. But as we all know, that consists of one site that goes for 3/4 of a kilometer and has thousands of images, and another site that's a single horse on a hoodoo somewhere. So the site numbers is really not all that significant. There are thousands of individual petroglyphs and pictographs. It's certainly one of the largest sites in Western North America, maybe the largest. I wouldn't go out on a limb on that. It has been recognized in just about every way that can be, and that is, it's a provincial historic site, it's a national historic site in Canada, and recently elevated to a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Those are the new UNESCO plaques that were just erected over the Milk River Valley. You can see, I'm not going to read this out, but it was accepted on criterion 3, which is to provide an exceptional testimony of the living cultural traditions of the Blackfoot people. We nominated it as a cultural landscape, and we were somewhat disappointed. We had several criteria that we used in our nomination. They did not accept the one regarding the importance of the rock art itself. And that surprised us and disappointed us. But as our federal managers told us, and remember, all nominations around the world are only handled by federal governments. So we had these handlers who worked us through this whole process, and they're really good at this. And they said, Jack, 10 years from now, you won't care what the criteria were. You'll care that it's a World Heritage Site. And I think they're right. I'm already leaning towards that. I was just a bit shocked at the beginning. I can't tell you how important a management plan is. Linnea is going to say more about this in the next hour. It sounds boring, and it isn't the most exciting part of dealing with rock art sites, but we would not have gotten our designation with UNESCO, certainly, if we didn't have one. In fact, what you're looking at here, if you look on the left and it says draft management plan, the whole reason it says draft is because we suddenly had to scramble at the last minute in a 13-year process of writing our nomination and going over and over and over this and throwing out versions and redoing the whole thing. We got down to the finish line literally within a few months of the final submission date, and we realized we had about a 25-year-old management plan in a dusty Surlux binder format. And UNESCO said, "You're serious? You're going to submit this?" And we kind of, well, it just looks bad. I mean, it looks like you have done nothing in 25 years to think about an upgrade, think about what you're doing with your property that you're proposing to say is of world significance. So we scrambled, and a team of people who do this kind of thing, which is not me, quickly wrote a 125-page management plan. There is a link at the top of this page, which Dave has kindly agreed he will put in the chat, so you don't have to copy it down. There's a link at the top that will take you to all the UNESCO documents for Writing on Stone nomination. And you will find the management plan there. That's just one page on the right that I screenshot and put up for you. The table of contents is many pages long, but it gives you an idea. And what I'm saying is basically, if you're looking at any kind of, I hate to use the word development, but any kind of improvement of a rock art site such that it might be something visitors are going to go see, or even not go see, but you need the facilities for that, you're going to need a management plan. You need a management plan if you're ever asking anybody for money, and most of us do at some point or other. If you're going to have a trail, if you're going to have a road, if you're going to have a brochure, a pamphlet, if you're going to have a box where pamphlets are stored and people return them to, if you're going to have signage, if you're going to have a kiosk, if you're going to have platforms and viewing places, virtually anything you could think of, somebody's going to say, well, do you have a management plan? How many people might come? What are the projected tourist numbers? Where are they going to come from? In what numbers? And by what roads will they get there? And where will they get facilities? Are you going to have a bathroom? Are you going to have a water fountain? Are you going to have et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? These things are all part of management plans. And people want to see them. If you're going to do absolutely nothing at a rock art site, you probably don't need one. But anything beyond that, people are going to ask for it. And it doesn't have to be complicated. Linnea is going to go through this in greater detail with help from us, I promise, Linnea, and we're all going to pitch in. But just to tell you that these things are important, and anybody dealing with management of a rock art site, it's good to think about what is in these things. What do people want to know? Who might be, for example, either the regulators of the site you're dealing with, the owners in the case of private land, or the funders in the case of people you're asking money for. Writing on Stone is a place owned by the government of Alberta. It's a provincial park. It has permanent staff that are assigned to it. It has walking trails. You go by guided tours to see rock art. There are areas of the park that are off limits otherwise that you cannot get to. There are parts of the park that have rock art that you can get to without a guided tour. The guided tours are offered about 6 months of the year, and in the middle of winter, you can walk around on your own and see some rock art if you know where to look. But there are major areas of the park that are off limits because they're considered restricted archaeological preserves. We try to hire Blackfoot members for the staff as much as possible, especially as tour guides. It isn't always possible because, as I mentioned, this is in a very remote spot, and people have it's a real challenge to work there. You can either drive about 45 minutes or an hour and a half each way every day, or you can try to live in the area if you can manage that. Visitor center. I know not everybody can have one. These things cost money, but I can't tell you enough how this changes the whole chemistry of the place and the feel and the touch and the concept of it. We opened this in 2007, and it has completely changed how we deal with the park. It becomes suddenly overnight, it is the focal point of where everybody goes, where people meet, where they start from, where they end. The tours come here, they start there, they end there. People come there to get a brochure, to ask what is there to do. Is there a lecture tonight? Can I get on the tour? Is there a bathroom? Is there water? How do I, where can I camp, et cetera, et cetera. It just changes everything. And we were lucky, we got about $1 million from the government, and we managed to build what I think is quite a nice visitor center. You don't need $1 million. You can have a kiosk, you can have a nice little gathering point with some signage or something. But if you can possibly develop a site with a visitor center, we have found it an amazing difference. This is the only site, I should note, in Alberta that has this. I just have a couple of images. I'm not talking about the rock art of the site today. Tomorrow I'm doing an address in the morning. I will, of course, touch on writing on stone in a much greater way then, although it's going to be more a tour of all of Alberta rock art, not just writing on stone. But it is a phenomenal site. It has thousands, as I said, of thousands of pictographs, thousands of petroglyphs scattered over many square kilometers. Oh, by the way, I should say the Blackfoot name Asanap is, it means it is written or it is pictured. And that has now become the second half of the official name of the park, since all of us know it as writing on stone, but it is now writing on stone / Asanap, and that's the official name now because of the UNESCO nomination. The Blackfoot community is and has been an important part of the site. We formed a committee to work with in the National Historic Site designation and the UNESCO designation. And these people were instrumental in all of that. In fact, they actually submitted the request for National Historic Site designation, but they could not submit the UNESCO one. That can only go in by a federal government. But they have been supportive, they've been consulted, they've been active members. We conduct ceremonies in the park. They use it for sweats, they use it for medicine bundle pipe openings. They lead tours, they help train the staff who give the tours, and they come and have picnics, and we have meetings and just enjoy the place together. It is sacred to them, of course. It always has been, it always will be. They have referred to it as their church, and it very much is just an open air church in their minds. I camped there many, many years, and the Blackfoot community, my friends would say, how can you possibly do that? It is so charged with spiritual energy. How can you sleep in your tent at night? And I like sleeping in energy charged areas. My last slide here is just to say, Canada has more to offer in the way of developed archaeological rock art sites. This is a map of just some across the country. Kejimkujik in Nova Scotia, Peterborough petroglyphs, which are pretty famous, and I'm sure some of you have been there. The St. Victor petroglyphs in Saskatchewan, Asanap in Alberta, and then a couple of sites in British Columbia, Sprout Lake and Nanaimo. And this website at the bottom, again, David will put that in the chat. You don't have to write it down now. You can copy it from there. This is a website that has 3 of these sites in considerable detail. It's quite an amazing website. It's put out by the Musée de la Civilisation in Quebec, and it's in French and English, and it's really good. It has in-depth interviews with people. It has lots of photographs. And so if you just want a quick look at Canadian rock art, this is a very good place to go.